Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we are going to discuss about functions in Python. On my screen you can see the different topics that we are going to cover today. So we will start with what is a function and when is it used, then how to write a function in Python, then we will see how to execute a function, then the function arguments, the number of arguments that you need to pass to a function, the default parameter value for a function, the function return value, and then finally we will see the homework which you can perform related to the functions. So today's video is going to be a really important path in your Python learning process. So stay tuned to this video. Hi guys, so we will start with what is a function and when is it used. A function is a block of code which may contain n number of lines of code, and when you execute this particular function, all those lines of code are executed and hence gives you a particular result. So when do we use a function? A function is used when you have to repeatedly call a particular logic again and again, maybe for example inside a for loop or maybe in different parts of the code. Then you create a function and then you call that function within the program in order to avoid writing the same logic again and again. So let's start with an example and see how we can write a function in Python. To write a function, we have to use the keyword which is def, any valid Python variable name. So I will start with my underscore function. So this is my function name which is prefixed by def, and then I have to put this brackets and followed by the colon. Okay, so I have created my function, but there is no content of this function yet. So I just want to do a print here and maybe hello world. Okay, so I created my first function here, and this is the exact format that you need to follow in order to create your first function in Python. So now what happens if I try to execute this file? Let's see. I executed this file and you can see that there is no output. This is because the function has been defined, but we have not called this function anywhere in our program. So this function will output this hello world statement only if we call it somewhere inside our program. So let's see how we can do this. So to execute this function, we have to write the function name followed by the brackets. And now if I try to execute this program, then you can see that the console output shows hello world, which means our function is now getting executed. Really simple, right? So in the next step, we will see how we can pass function arguments. So before that, we need to understand what an argument means in Python function. So I will write a new function here, my second function, okay, and as we did earlier, we will do something like print hello world. Okay, so everything is same, just my function name is different. But now we will also introduce function arguments. So the arguments are written inside the bracket here, so say arg1, and the arguments can be separated by using comma. So you can have multiple arguments like this. And what does an argument do? Let's see that. So now you can call the function like my second function as we did earlier, but this time you will provide some values for these arguments. Say for example my name followed by another random name and another random name. Okay, so we have provided all the three arguments, and these arguments are captured here within the function, and then we will be able to use these arguments within the function if we want to do so. But at the moment we will see what happens if I just execute this code, and I have commented the previous code so that the output doesn't get mixed up. I will execute this and see the output. So it shows hello world, which is as expected, but we will now also use the arguments that we have passed here. So how we can use it? I will do a print followed by arg1, and I can do this for all the three arguments that we have passed. Okay, so arg1, arg2, and we have arg3 as well. Now if I print this, you should be able to see all the three arguments getting printed, right? So while we call the function, we pass the arguments, which are the string values, and those string values are received by these arguments in the function, and then we use these values to print them to the console. Pretty clear, right? Okay, so I will move on to the next item, which is the number of arguments that you can pass to a function. So as you have seen in the previous example that the number of arguments were 3 there, but you could also have argument 4, argument 5, and so on, as many as you want. But the only thing that you have to consider is if the number of arguments in the function definition here is 5, then while calling the function also you need to provide 5 arguments. So in this example I have called the function by just providing 3 arguments, but initially the function was defined with 5 arguments, and if I try to execute this program, let's see what happens. So you see that there is an error that missing 2 required positional arguments, argument 4 and argument 5. So which is true because we have provided only 3 arguments here. So now I will provide the remaining 2 as well and see what happens when we try to execute this program. Now I will try to execute this again, and you can see that the program executed successfully and it prints the first 3 arguments. So we have already covered the number of arguments step here, and I will move on to the 6th item, which is the default parameter value. To illustrate this example, I will use the previous example that we wrote, and here I will try to make it as, say, 2. Okay, so what I have done here is I have defined a default value for argument 5, which means that if I do not provide a value for argument 5 while executing this function or calling this function here, okay, so I have just provided the 4 parameters, but the 5th one is not provided. But while defining the function, I have said that this parameter can have a default value of anoop2, which means if I have not provided a value, it will still work and use anoop2 as its default value. And just to see what value it has, we will print it and see the output in the console. So here I have printed argument 5 to see what output we receive in the console. Let's execute this program and see the console. So now you can see that the output is printed to the console, and the last item is anoop2, which is the default value of argument 5. And what happens if I provide a different value while trying to call this particular function? So we already have a default value here, but I'm trying to call it with a different value. So if I execute this, you will see that the output contains the value that I provided while calling this particular function, which means the default value is used only when we do not provide a value here. So we have covered everything till number 6, which was the default parameter value, and then moving on to the 7th item, the function return value. Okay, so we executed this function and we also printed things here. I will just remove all of these, and this is the line where we executed the function. Now if I execute this, you will see that we have some error because this function doesn't have anything inside it. So we have to have something here, say called function. Okay, and if I execute this again, you can see that called function is getting printed. And I will also try to get rid of all these parameters because we don't need them for this particular example, and we just keep one parameter. Okay, and I will try to execute this again, and you can see that called function is getting printed and everything is fine. And now we will look into the function return value and how it works. Okay, so while calling this function, I'm printing the called function string here within the function. Okay, so I don't want to do it here. What will I do is I will try to return, okay, return arg1, and I will instead print it here. What I'm trying to do is, as we had already seen that this is how I call a function, I type the function name here, which is my second function, and I'm passing the parameter, which is a noob, a string, and within the function I'm trying to do a return of the value which is provided. Okay, so what this does is it returns the value. That means it gives back this value to the statement that has called this function. So the statement which has called this function is our row number 11, and if we try to print it, it will actually print the value returned here. So it will actually print the arg1. Okay, and let's see what happens now. So if I try to execute this function or the program, you can see that the output is Anoop, which is basically the arg1, which is passed from here, and it is returned from here and comes to the print statement, and it gets printed to the console. So I think it's pretty straightforward, but if you're not able to understand, don't worry, because this is just the beginning, and once you start writing multiple functions and multiple examples of Python functions in your program, then you will automatically start understanding how things work within a function and how you can return multiple data types and multiple values from a Python and use it in rest of your program. Okay, so now we jump into the homework. So as part of your homework, you have to write a function which returns your full name. Okay, so we are talking about the return statement here. So the function should return your full name. And how does the function know what is your full name? It will know from the arguments. So you have to provide two arguments to your function. So for example, argument 1 and argument 2. Okay, so in this way you have to accept two arguments in your function. So the first argument will be your first name, and the second argument will be your last name, and then you have to return your full name. So full name is basically your first name plus your last name and a space between these two. Okay, and once you return your full name, you have to print it in a line below it, just like this. I think this is pretty straightforward and you can do it. If you face any problem, please go ahead and comment your problem within the comment section of this video. I will try to respond to your problems as soon as possible. If you enjoyed this video so far, please do not forget to like this video and share it with your friends. If you have not subscribed to this channel so far, please do it now so that you get notified once I upload my next video on Python tutorial for beginners. Thanks for watching this video. Thanks for your time. Take care. Bye.